Well, what?
It just sounds a little dirty.
I can just be saying normal stuff and y'all are like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. I'm like, I'm not even trying. Well, what if I say my underlayer is fat?
That sounds even worse.
Oh boy. My underlayer is very fat. Chunky. No? No? I pushed it. That's where you guys draw the line? Okay, so this is, to me, like, this is kind of like an advanced artist problem because, somebody like me, if been following our videos and following me on Instagram, you know that a lot of the stuff I like to do is drawing, watercolor. I do oil paint, though. I have oil painted. But there is a lot going on with oil paint that sometimes I'm not even conscientious of and really paying attention to, and I have been scolded and yelled at because I've got to do things right, okay? Now, fat over lean is something that you've probably heard if you're an oil painter, paint fat over lean. But in my research, I found it's kind of like a red herring. It's a misnomer. It's really more about this trifecta, okay, or hat trick. Maybe I'm just listing things. There are 3 things that go into a properly balanced oil painting, okay? That's adhesion, drying time, and sheen. We want to make sure that all these things are in balance. Because if they're not in balance, then you are going to have issues. And we're going to show you issues later, okay? I brought a friend in, Amy Gardner-Dean, our resident artist here. She's here to help me out with this because she is an advanced artist and I've got a problem. And together we are, Captain Planet? I don't know. Now, you're going to look at these panels, and I didn't make these, okay? I don't know why these colors were picked. It looks like crap, literally. Okay, so what do we have going on here, okay? On all 3 of these panels, we've got burnt sienna painted thick, medium, and thin, okay? And then on this panel, it's just the straight paint. On this one, a solvent like spike oil, okay, lavender spike oil was mixed in with the paint. And then on this one, linseed oil was mixed in with the paint. So making this paint inherently lean and this paint inherently fatty. Fat over lean, I should have saved that title for like my autobiography. I think that's a good title for me. And then we went over it with the lavender spike oil on column A, and on B, the linseed oil. Now, this is sort of something that kind of bummed me out because, okay, so if you see here, so this is spike oil, so this paint is very thin, and then this is thin over thin. Well, okay, thin over thin, you see how it picked up that paint. It didn't adhere very well. It kind of, picked it up because it's a paint thinner. And then over here we've got linseed oil put over that thin paint, and that's consistent. Now you will see that where the linseed oil strip was added, do you see that how it's got a sheen? There's a little bit of sheen here, a lot more sheen here because this is fat. Linseed oil, okay, so oil's fat added to this paint. Now that will make the paint inherently glossy. Now, this is something that I was like, well, wait a second. This is lean over fat. Here, the linseed oil was added to the paint, dried, so that's a fat layer, and then the spike oil was put over, and you see how much less came up? But that's lean over fat. That's backwards. That confused me. I was like, what does that mean? Well, even though it is more resilient to the paint layer underneath, it's still not a proper balance. It's still not going to give me the proper balance between adhesion, drying time, and sheen. And as you can see, it's a little duller because of that. Spike oil was put over the top, even though it didn't pick up the paint. Is that a good point? I don't know. I'm getting nods. Okay, good point. What is the proper way to paint? Fat over lean is part of it. But how do we achieve this balance, okay? It's about taking your oil paints, because in every brand of oil paint, there are always going to be, not inconsistencies, but each paint's made a little different. And some paints might have linseed oil, some paints might have poppy oil. Depending on the pigments, it might change the characteristics of the paint. And we need to balance this out, okay, to make sure that we're getting that proper adhesion. Otherwise, we're going to have some issues. And again, Amy's here for my issues. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to make sure our underlayers are lean and drying properly, okay? So how do you make sure your underlayer is lean? What we're going to do is you're going to take 50% linseed oil, okay, 50% Well, this is lavender spike oil essence, or you can use natural turpentine. However, that is toxic. This is non-toxic. That's why I kind of push for this because it's safe. 50-50 on these two things added to your paint will make them leaner, okay? So if you think fat over lean, think fat, glossy, I think about, like, I don't know, butter. I mean, anything that's got a lot of fat in it is going to be that glossy, fat looking, and then lean is going to be more matte. I don't know what a lean, what's a lean, what's like the butter analogy for lean? Margarine? Will, you're fired. You're not really, please stay. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to add those to our underlayer, okay? And then let that dry. And it's also important to know that you're not going to use, because you might think, well, wouldn't it be even leaner to just add the spike oil straight into your paint, and that's like the leanest of the lean? You can. It's best when it's done as your very, very first layer. Maybe when you're blocking in, because that will dry the fastest. And even still, using straight like linseed oil with your paints is not a great idea either, because it can be overly fat, which means overly shiny. We don't want to have matte spots, glossy spots. We want an even sheen, okay? And if you've ever heard of sinking, not like Titanic style, but sinking in oil painting, you know that is when spots dull over time because they haven't followed these rules, okay? And if you don't follow these rules, you'll have to wind up oiling it out where you're trying to re-fatten up what you leaned, and it's never great to fatten where you're lean. So what would be a medium recipe for fat medium? So you've done your lean layers, and now you're ready to get your fat layers, because we want to have that proper adhesion, because the fat over lean will adhere properly, and we will have some examples of what isn't adhered properly, okay, to show you. What it is a pour 50% linseed oil, okay, 35% spike oil, 15% Damar varnish, okay? Now that's a lot going on, all right? But that is a good balance. I mean, again, you're like, well, what if I just add more linseed oil? It's not a great idea because it's not a balance. It's too fat. It's too fatty, okay? Too much fat is not a good thing. Healthy fats. This is your healthy fat when added to this and balance out. Oh, it makes sense. I like it when I make things dance. I don't know why. I do this with my dogs. I pick them up and they hate me. Why would I bother to do this? You know how lazy I am. You know how lazy I am. I couldn't stand it. I'm not a big pusher of product, but I will say that now that I know that this is available, what I use, Chelsea Classical's fat and lean mediums are these things already mixed together for me. So I don't have to think about it. I don't have to figure out what 15% of 100 is. I guess it's 15%. But I mean, in proportion, like, I was sitting there like, well, maybe I should pour these things out and mix it. I'm like, I'm too lazy to even do that to demonstrate on the video. This is already figured out for me. I just add it and I'm done. I mean, and it's just that simple, okay? So let me stop jibber jabbering, fool, and have Amy, will you come up here? We'll strike this. You like my little Mr. T?
Yes.
My van's hell of a fast. Amy came here today and she told me that she would prepare some paintings to show us when you're not painting in that right balance. And unfortunately, she did my arch nemesis, ostriches. I don't know if you guys know this about me. I am petrified of ostriches. Every time I go on the safari ride at Animal Kingdom, I have to close my eyes. So let's bear with me as we look at these things. Okay, so Amy, explain to us what's going on with these two and what were some of the issues that you had?
Okay, so these were done when I was in college still. And our instructor had us use mineral spirits, which is a petroleum-based product. Didn't explain a lot of the technical mumbo jumbo as to what that was. I don't think he even really knew that that wasn't something you should be using. So he would have us thin the paint down to do our first layers. So you see, in these areas where you've got this thin color, that's just a lot of mineral spirits and very little pigment. And then we built up kind of over it. What we weren't made aware of, and I don't, I think it was just he didn't know better. A lot of people don't know better.
Right.
Is that this being a petroleum product, it's very greasy. It will evaporate some of it, but it leaves that kind of slimy sheen. Like when you're at the gas station and it's been raining, you see the little puddles of where the drips are. That just soaks in and doesn't go away to the pavement. So it's the same with this. So even though this pigment's on here, and then they've been spray varnished, it still is not bonded completely to the the gessoed layer. So
and that can lead to
it can come up over time.
It can flake off. It can crack. Yeah, you can kind of see how it's
Look.
not. Oh, yeah, with your finger. With
Yeah,
just
with your finger, you can rub it up because just that oil is still there even years later.
What?
It's been over 20 years, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, that's been there. That should have bonded, and then it didn't because it's a petroleum product. So this is why odorless mineral spirits are actually not a great thing at all. You don't smell them in your studio, or if you're in a painting studio with other people, you don't have the odor, but you still have that in the air. You can still get it in your lungs. And this is what happens with what if I would taken this and painted really heavy layers and stuff, and over time, any jostling and stuff, or bumping it and it cracking, that would just pop right off.
Well, not only that, but with odorless thinners, what's the gas where they add stink to it so that that
Yeah,
propane?
kerosene.
Kerosene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So odorless thinner is actually like, you don't want that. You want to know when you're smelling because it's still noxious. You can get lightheaded, headaches, and even can cause some serious health issues. So everything that we're showing with like lavender spike oil and all these products that I had mentioned before, there's no known carcinogens. They're non-toxic, so you don't have to worry about breathing them in. Odorless thinner sounds like it's safe, but it's actually, they just took the smell out and you don't know that it's still being noxious. I've gotten so many headaches from not being properly ventilated. With this guy over here, he keeps staring at me, so it's bumming me out. Would it rub up on this one, or this one looks like it's been varnished? Has this been varnished?
But both of them have been spray varnished.
Spray varnished.
And that still can come up that light because it didn't, the varnish can't really stick to this because there's that product under it.
What if I feel like, okay, so it's adhering properly, I think, and it's dried properly, I think, and I see some, maybe some dull spots and some. Why can't I just like put Damar varnish over the whole thing? Wouldn't that just balance out the sheen? Why do I have to care about it when I'm painting underneath?
Well, I mean, you can, and it may look shiny until the Damar is dry.
Oh.
But then it's going to, because that oil that's in there is going to sink into those matte areas, and then the shiny areas will become even more shiny. So then you've got the same issue.
Well, Amy is our host of our Jerry's Live on Facebook. So if you want to learn more from Amy, check that out, Tuesdays at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes I make little cameos. Well, I've made one. I'm going to do more. I had fun. Okay, let's get these the hell out of my face. They scare me. They bum me out. You can use any brand linseed oil and turpentine to do this. I just like the fact that what we're using here is non-toxic, and there's no other brand that has made it so easy as just fat and lean medium. I mean, that just keeps it so simple, and I need simple or I go nuts. I don't know why that's nuts, but it just felt natural. I'm just gonna go with it. So first paint lean, then paint fat. Then paint me on Instagram at MikeNowJerry, where I'll continue to add original content, fun stuff, behind the scenes, outtakes, and other things that are designed to, get me attention. I guess that's what it's designed to do, right? I mean, I don't make any money off of it or anything. It's just fun for me. I have fun. So what are some of your oil painting woes? What have been some issues that you've had in the past? Have you experiencing sinking issues? Have you experienced poor adhesion? These are all things that, put in the comments below. We'd like to hear it and talk it out. All these things in balance are important because it leads to an archival, long-lasting painting process. If you hadn't been doing this properly, whether it's in 6 months or 6 years or 60 years, your paintings can chip, fall apart. They will not be resilient. They will not be able to stand the test of time. And how are we going to get in museums if our paintings are falling apart? We need to make sure we're doing it properly. And oil painting, I thought was a lot simpler than it actually is, and now I might have, maybe I've talked you out of oil painting, but don't. It's easy. Fat and lean medium. You already know what you're doing. It's so simple. I'm just dawdling now. Okay, are they emus?
Either.
Is there any real difference between that and an ostrich?
About a foot, I think.
Oh.
It tastes better.
Do they?
Leaner.
I think I ate an ostrich burger once. At the fair.
Aren't all the turkey legs at theme parks really emus?
I felt justified.
Those are the ones at the Ren fairs.
Yeah.